Walk to the far end of your garden and turn around. Do not look at the flowers. Look at the line where the grass stops and the bed begins. That line tells on the whole garden. If it wanders, if grass is nosing into the soil and mulch is spilling onto the lawn, expensive plants still look neglected. Cut one clean line in the same place, and ordinary planting begins to look planned. That is why a professional garden reads well before you can name a single thing growing in it. I spent 40 years around nursery stock, and gardeners nearly always wanted to buy another plant when the border looked tired. Most of the time, the cheaper answer was to finish the edge they already had. So I am giving you 10 no-dig edges. None needs concrete, machinery, or a lost weekend. Some cost nothing. One is sold everywhere and is the one I trust least. I will tell you why when we reach it. First, we need to get the part right that matters more than the material. The line comes first and the material comes second. I have seen people spend $400 on stone and lay it along a wobbly edge, and it looks worse than an old plank laid straight. Your eye is very good at spotting a line that is nearly straight and very forgiving of a curve that is properly round. So commit to one or the other, straight or a deliberate sweeping curve. Never a wandering line that cannot decide. For a straight run, 2 stakes and a length of string pulled tight. That is the full toolkit. For a curve, lay a garden hose on the ground and stand back and look at it from where you actually view the garden, usually the kitchen window or the back door. Move it about until the curve is easy on the eye. Leave it a day, look again in different light, then cut to it. A curve you have looked at twice is worth 10 you laid in a hurry. One last point before the list. Whatever you use, the top of it wants to be at or just below the height of your mower deck. Edging that stands proud is edging you will be trimming by hand every fortnight for the rest of your life, and that is how these projects end up hated. A word on tools, because there are only 4 and you likely have 3 of them. A half-moon edging iron, flat, half-round blade on a long handle, made for exactly this and nothing else. $30 and it will see you out. A flat spade will do the job, but it leaves scallops where the corners of the blade bite, and a half-moon leaves a continuous line. A rubber mallet for bedding brick and stone down without chipping them. A length of mason's line and 2 stakes, not garden twine, which stretches and sags. Mason's line pulls tight and stays tight. And a plank, a 6-foot board laid on the grass to kneel and stand on while you work. It spreads your weight, stops you rutting a wet lawn, and gives you a straight edge to cut against on short runs. That is it. No power tools on this entire list. Now then, 10 of them. First, the spade-cut edge. No materials at all. I am starting here because it is free and because in a good many gardens it beats everything else on this list. You take a half-moon edging iron, or a good flat spade if you have not got one, and you cut down vertically along your line to about the depth of the blade. Then you come at it from inside the bed at an angle and lift out a wedge of turf and soil, so you are left with a clean vertical wall on the lawn side and a shallow trench at the bottom of it. That trench is the point. It is a gap the grass has to cross, and grass spreads sideways at soil level, so it stops at the edge and sits there. Cut it once in spring and once in midsummer, and it holds all year. 10 minutes for a decent-sized border. Where the job goes wrong is cutting it sloped on the lawn side. People shave it at an angle because it is easier on the arms, and then the grass simply grows down the slope and across. Vertical on the lawn side. That is the only rule. A few things that make it easier. Do it when the ground is damp but not wet, a day or 2 after rain. Bone-dry ground fights the blade and sodden ground smears rather than cuts, and a smeared edge collapses in a fortnight. Work backwards along the line so you are always treading on ground you have not cut yet. And put the turf you lift somewhere useful rather than in the bin. Stacked upside down in a corner, grass to grass, turf rots down in a year into the best loam you will ever handle. A turf stack kept in a spare corner will give you good potting loam. That is where the loam in a loam-based compost comes from, and it costs nothing but the corner it sits in. For a curve, take shorter bites with the iron and turn the blade a little each time rather than trying to sweep it. A curve cut in short straight chords looks curved once the grass grows in. A curve cut by dragging looks wobbly forever. Second, log edging. Split logs on their side. Any straight branch or small log 4 to 6 inches thick, split down the middle or left hole, laid end to end along your line with the cut face up. You are not fixing them to anything. Their own weight holds them. Scrape a shallow seat in the soil so each one beds down and does not rock. It suits an informal garden, a woodland edge, anywhere that formal stone would look wrong. And if you have taken a tree down, it is free. Where the job goes wrong is using soft wood off the woodpile. Pine and spruce will be soft and crumbling within 3 years. What you want is oak, cedar, black locust, anything with natural rot resistance. And even then, bark left on holds moisture and speeds it up. Take the bark off if you can be bothered. Third, brick on the diagonal. What used to be called dogtooth. Reclaimed bricks set on their long edge at 45 degrees, each one leaning into the next, so you get a row of triangles along the top. Old Victorian gardens are full of them, and there is a reason they are still there. Dig a shallow trench, 2 or 3 inches, tip a little sharp sand in the bottom, and set the bricks leaning. Each one supports the one behind. Tap them down with the handle of your trowel until the tops line up. No mortar. The soil either side holds them. Look for reclaimed bricks rather than new ones. Old bricks were fired harder and they have color in them that new stock does not. Salvage yards sell them by the pallet for very little because nobody wants 100-odd bricks. Where the job goes wrong is using modern-facing brick with holes through the middle. Those are made to be laid flat inside a wall. They hold water in the holes and they blow apart in the first hard frost. One more note on brick. Lay a short test run of 6 or 8 before you commit to the whole line. Then stand back and look at the angle. 45 degrees is the traditional lean, but a shallower angle gives you more triangles and a busier line, and a steeper one gives fewer and calmer. Which you want depends on the length of the run. A long border wants the calmer version. Count on about 5 bricks to the running foot at 45 degrees, so measure and add 10% for breakages. Fourth, laid stone on edge. My father's method. Flat stone, set upright on its long edge, packed shoulder to shoulder into a shallow trench with the soil rammed back against both sides. Nothing else. Harlan edged all the paths through our orchard that way, with stone dug out of the same ground when they were leveling. No mortar, no base, no anything. When I went back to that place 50 years later, those edges had not moved an inch. Meanwhile, I paid good money for machine-cut edging once, at my own place, laid it properly, and it heaved and lifted in 3 winters. The difference is that his stones were narrow and deep. Set an 8-inch deep stone with 6 inches in the ground and 2 showing, and frost cannot get under it, because there is no under. Set a shallow decorative piece on the surface, and the ground lifts it every winter. So if you use stone, use the deep offcuts nobody wants, not the pretty flat ones. Fifth, steel edging. A thin strip of steel, usually 1/4 inch by 4 inches deep, with stakes that drive down through slots in it. You knock it in with a mallet along your line, and that is the job. It is the professional's choice for a reason. It gives you the cleanest, thinnest line available. It disappears visually once the grass grows against it, and it will bend to any curve you like without cutting. Buy the steel sort rather than aluminium if you have the option. Aluminium is lighter to carry and it dents when you hit it with a mower wheel. Where the job goes wrong is standing it too proud. An inch showing is plenty. 2 inches is a shin barker and a mower catcher, and steel edging left standing high is the reason some people hate it. 2 practical notes. It comes in 8 or 16-foot lengths that overlap and lock at the ends, so measure your run and buy 1 length spare, because you will lose some to the overlaps. And drive the stakes at a slight angle, leaning back into the bed, rather than straight down. They grip better and the frost has less to push against. If it is going round a tight curve, warm it in the sun for an hour first. It bends far more willingly. Sixth, willow or hazel hurdle edging. Woven whips sold in rolls or in short panels with legs on them, pushed into the soil along the front of a bed, 6 or 8 inches high. It is the softest looking option on this list and it suits a cottage border better than anything hardwood. It also gives you a low physical barrier that keeps mulch and soil from washing forward onto the grass. It is not permanent. 3 to 5 years and it goes brittle and you replace it. Take that as the trade rather than a fault, because the price reflects it. Where the job goes wrong is buying it treated and green dyed. It will fade to a strange color in a season. Buy it plain and let it weather to gray. 2 practical points. Soak the roll in water for an hour before you set it, particularly if it has been in a dry shed. Dry willow snaps when you push it into the ground, and wet willow bends. And push it in further than the legs suggest. Most rolls come with short spikes, and if you only drive those, the whole thing leans forward under the weight of the bed behind it within a year. Get a third of the panel height into the soil and it stays upright. If you can cut your own, hazel and willow both coppice, and whips cut in winter while dormant are what you want. That is genuinely free edging for anyone with a hedgerow. Seventh, gravel or a mulch strip. Not an edge in the usual sense. A band of material 6 or 8 inches wide laid between bed and lawn, on top of a strip of woven landscape fabric. What it gives you is separation. Grass roots do not cross it easily, water drains through it, and it reads as a deliberate line from a distance. It also gives you somewhere to run a mower wheel, which is the real prize. If you lay it flush with the turf, you can mow with one wheel on the gravel and never need to trim the edge at all. That saves more time over a season than any other thing on this list. Where the job goes wrong is fabric under gravel with nothing to stop the gravel traveling. It will migrate into the lawn within a year, and then you are picking stones out of the mower. It needs something holding at least one side of it, usually the steel edging from number 5, or a spade-cut trench on the bedside. On the gravel itself, use an angular chip rather than a rounded pea gravel. Angular stone locks together and stays put. Rounded stone rolls, and it rolls downhill and onto the lawn and under the mower. Ask for crushed stone, 1/4 inch to 3/8, and buy it by the bag from a landscape supplier rather than the garden center, where the same material costs 4 times as much in a pretty sack. Lay it 2 inches deep. Less and the fabric shows through within a season. More and you are walking on marbles. And be honest about whether you will top it up. Gravel sinks and scatters and wants a fresh 1/2 inch every 3 or 4 years. If that sounds like a chore you will resent, take one of the solid options instead. Eighth, and this is the one I said I would come back to, plastic roll edging. The black corrugated stuff in a coil at every garden center in the country, sold with plastic pegs. I will be plain why I would not put it in most gardens. It comes coiled, so it never fully straightens, and every joint and every peg shows. It is the same black in a garden where nothing else is black. But the real objection is that it does not stay where you put it. It is thin, it is light, and the first frost heave lifts a section, and then a mower catches the lifted bit and tears it. And by year 3, you have a wavy black line with a hole in it, looking worse than no edging at all. If you already have it, one thing helps enormously. Dig it in deeper so that only a 1/2 inch shows, and re-peg it every spring. It is the height that ruins it more than the material. And if you want cheap, go back to number 1. A spade-cut edge costs nothing and looks better than plastic ever will. Ninth, upturned bottle edging. Glass bottles pushed neck down into a shallow trench, shoulder to shoulder, so a row of bases shows along the line. Wine bottles are the usual, and green glass catches low light rather well. It is a real and old technique, not a novelty. There are Victorian gardens with bottle edging still in place. 2 conditions. Sink them at least 2/3 of their length, or frost will push them out and you will have loose glass in a border, which is worse than untidy. And keep them to a bed you are not digging in often. It works round a shrub or a permanent planting, and it does not work round a border you are forking over every spring. Free if you drink wine, and if you do not, the recycling bin at any pub will settle the matter. 10th, timber board on edge. Ordinary boards, 2x6 or 2x8, set on their long edge along the line and held with short stakes driven on the bedside, screwed through. It gives you the crispest straight line of anything here, and it is the right answer for a rectangular vegetable bed or a formal border. It is quick and it is cheap, and anyone can do it. 2 things. Put the stakes on the bedside, always, so they are hidden and so your mower never meets one. And use a rot-resistant timber, cedar, or a pressure-treated board rated for ground contact. Plain softwood in contact with soil is a 3-year proposition. Butt the joints on a stake so both boards are held. A couple of refinements worth the extra 10 minutes. Cut the tops of the stakes off flush with the board once they are driven, so nothing shows above the line. And if the run is long, drive a stake every 4 feet rather than every 6. Timber bows in the sun, and a bowed board is more noticeable than a wobbly one because the eye expects timber to be straight. If you want it to last considerably longer, brush the buried face and the bottom edge with a bitumen paint or wrap it in a strip of damp-proof membrane before you set it. It is the ground contact that rots a board, not the weather, and 10 minutes with a brush can double the life of the job. Now, choosing between them, because 10 options is not help unless I tell you how to pick. Match the edging to the house, not to the garden. This is the thing that separates a garden that looks designed from one that looks like a collection of good intentions. If you have a brick house, brick edging. Stone house, stone edging. Timber siding, timber boards. The eye reads the repeat without being told to, and the garden and the building stop arguing with each other. If none of that applies, or if the house is rendered or sided in something you cannot copy, use steel or a spade-cut edge. Both are effectively invisible, and invisible never clashes. Second rule, use one material throughout. 1. The commonest mistake I see in a home garden is 3 kinds of edging in one view. Brick round the front bed, plastic down the side, timber round the vegetables. Each was a sensible decision on the day. Together they read as clutter, and it is the single biggest reason a garden looks cheap when every individual part of it is fine. If you have to phase the work over 2 or 3 years because of cost, that is entirely reasonable. Just decide now which material you are ending up with and do the most visible bed first in that material. Third, formal garden, formal edge. Informal garden, soft edge. Brick, steel, and timber all read as crisp and deliberate. Log, willow, and gravel read as loose and countrified. Stone on edge goes either way, depending on how neatly you set it. Match the mood or the edge will fight the planting. Now, keeping any of it looking right. Whatever you have laid, the edge is a job, not an object. Twice a year is the rhythm. In spring, before growth starts, walk the whole line and reset anything the frost has lifted. 10 minutes. This is the step that separates edging that looks good for a decade from edging that looks tired in 2 years, and almost nobody does it. In midsummer, cut the grass back off it. Grass grows toward a bed all season, and by July, it will have thrown runners over the top of whatever you laid. A half-moon iron or a sharp spade straight down along the face and lift the strip off. And keep your mulch off the edging. Mulch heaped up against a board or a brick holds water against it and rots or stains it, and it spills onto the lawn every time it rains. Leave a couple of inches short. I mean to say one more thing about the money, because it is the point of the whole exercise. 100 feet of steel edging will cost you somewhere around $200. 100 feet of reclaimed brick, maybe $80. 100 feet of spade-cut edge costs an afternoon and nothing else. None of those is a large sum against what the same 100 feet of new planting would cost, and the edge does more for how the garden reads than the planting does. That is not an opinion about taste. It is what your eye does at distance, and it is why every professional job you have ever admired has a crisp line in it. Here is the job I would do first. Pick the bed you see from the house. Lay a string for a straight run or a hose for a curve, and cut that one edge properly. Buy nothing yet. Then walk to the far end and look back. If the line is right, you will see the whole border settle down before you have moved a plant. After that, you can decide whether it needs brick, stone, timber, steel, or no material at all. Tell me what edge has lasted in your ground and what has lifted, rotted, or wandered. Soil and winter expose weak work better than any sales label. A garden shows its workmanship at the edge. Get that line right and the middle has a chance.